so I didn't want to do it on live. But we're going to talk about the city of San Diego today, and I see there's already a couple people in the room. Thank you for coming by. I've got the NIMBY out today because San Diego's pulling some nonsense. It's an interesting case, and if you got any questions, pop them in the chat. We'll do the same thing as usual. But otherwise, I'm just going to tell this story about what's going on in San Diego right now and how you can get involved. So, the city of San Diego has a really incredible ADU bonus program. That means on top of what the state requires, which is that every single family dwelling property can build a couple ADUs and every multifamily dwelling property can build multiple ADUs. On top of that, the city of San Diego has a bonus ADU program, which allows you to do another ADU if you deed restricted affordable. And so if you do one ADU at deed restricted affordable, which means you're gonna rent it at a certain rate to income qualified tenants, like low income tenants, then you can build a market rate ADU, a second one, and you can repeat that process. So in San Diego, you've got projects where if the lot size allows for it, people are not building just one ADU, but they're building two, or they're building four, or they're even building six, right? You see, that's really exciting to the city because they want more affordable housing units, and that this helps people pencil that affordable one because they have one at market rate that carries kind of the brunt of the margin, right? So it's a cool bonus program. I'm gonna put lots of links actually in the show notes at the end of this. So that if you want to read about it, you'll find them in the description below the video. There's an article from Cal Matters, which is a publication I really trust. They kind of cover it very fairly, the pros and the cons of the program. There's a research paper from Turner. There's a bunch of research papers and a bunch of news articles that I'll link to. But overall, I'd say the ADU bonus program is a very generous program that accomplishes a lot of cool goals. Having said that, it is very controversial, right? And the vast majority of the projects are like under 10 units on a lot. But in some cases, the way the program is set up, developers are finding gigantic lots in the middle of urban areas, and they're realizing that they can build, 40 units, sometimes 100 units on a single property. And I want to get into all those details, but suffice it to say, there is an ADU bonus program. It is pretty cool. It is state of the art, and there's a lot of good things to say about it. It is also controversial, and so we could talk about the controversy and take it really seriously. But that sets the stage. In January, out of nowhere, this program came under attack in a way that's kind of borderline illegal. The way that it works is if the city council wants to approach a topic, it has to accept public comment. It has to let the public know that they're going to talk about it at city council. It has to notice people, put up a notice with a specific agenda, 72 hours ahead of time, and that allows people to come and watch the city council deliberate, offer public comment, and technically, city council members aren't supposed to make up their minds before receiving that public comment, before hearing it. And so it's a really strict legal requirement. It's all part of something called the Brown Act. The city of San Diego had this issue on the agenda called Footnote 7, and we'll get into that later. But Footnote 7 is about a specific issue with the zoning and the minimum lot sizes in this neighborhood called the Encanto neighborhood, yeah? And it was a really well-attended meeting. People spoke about why they wanted the footnote to be removed, and I found a lot of the arguments very compelling. We could talk about that too. But at the end of all that public comment, that was all about Footnote 7, the city councilor who was kind of piloting this agenda item, he makes a motion to remove the footnote, and he asks city staff to go off and bring back an action item to remove the city's density bonus ADU program. Sorry, bonus ADU program, not density bonus. And that's out of nowhere, in my opinion. I watched the whole thing. Very few people talked about ADUs. A lot of the people who were talking about Footnote 7 specifically said that they were not against housing. They were just against this neighborhood-specific zoning thing. It was really surprising to me that he extrapolated it to all ADUs in the bonus program. It's worth noting that the bonus program is citywide, right? It's not specific to this Encanto neighborhood. And so that really shocked me. Immediately, the city attorney does what the city attorney should do and tells the city council, like, hey, we can't, this isn't on the agenda item. You might be opening yourself up to a Brown Act complaint. And all the city councilors, they just went along with it. They ask, hey, can we bifurcate this motion? Can we do the part about the footnote that we want to remove, and then separately we asked staff to go off and think about ADUs? That seemed like a much less risky way to do it. And the city councilor who made the motion, this guy Foster, he just insisted on having them bundled. And so they kind of try to convince him to do it the logical way, that let's just separate these and de-risk it. And he really insisted on keeping them together. Of course, somebody did complain, it looks like, because on the February, on the agenda for the March meeting that's about to happen, there's an item that's about this, that's like, hey, we're rescinding the motion from January, and we're gonna redo it as a motion. It's two motions, and so it's happening. All right, I'm gonna look it up right now, and just so we have the file right in front of us. Anybody have questions or anything about the City of San Diego issue? Let me know. I'm pulling up the agenda for the council because I suspect it might change, like, while we're on this call, while I'm doing this live. Oh, good. Yeah, sure enough. Okay. They've added a new thing. This is very sneaky. I can't believe it. Okay. So this is kind of breaking news. I checked at 10 a.m. this morning and it wasn't on the agenda. What's happening right now is that on Tuesday, there is another city council meeting, and they had released an agenda for that meeting, which would rescind the motion from January and present it as two separate issues. Just do the issue related to Footnote 7. And now they've added, on the Friday before the Tuesday meeting, so that there's less time to organize, they've added accessory dwelling unit bonus program. And they're saying, hey, this is a proposed action. This is an item to repeal the City of San Diego's ADU bonus program. The ADU bonus program was established, and concerns have been raised regarding the ADU bonus program's impact on density, neighborhood character, infrastructure capacity, and public safety. So, resolution requesting city staff to return with an action item to repeal the city's accessory dwelling unit bonus program. And they're gonna put it up on Tuesday at 10 a.m. So now that they've released this, we have 4 days to organize people to show up and either issue public comment through the website, which you can do, or to show up in person if you can be in the middle of a Tuesday morning at City Hall. My suspicion is that a lot of the retired people who can show up will be from this group that is against Footnote 7, and they might also speak about the ADU bonus program. We're probably going to have to do some organizing to make sure that a lot of San Diegans who want to see more affordable housing can be there to say good things about the ADU bonus program, because this is a repeal. It is not guardrails. It is not a tweak. It is the repeal of a successful program. So, having said that, all right, there's a few of you in the room right now. Let me know if you have any questions. I know you're coming in halfway through the story, some of you, but like basically, City of San Diego has an amazing bonus ADU program with some controversy, and they are kind of surprising us with about 4 days advance notice. They have changed the agenda for the Tuesday morning meeting that's going to happen next week, and they are asking city staff to consider repealing the program and coming back with an action item about repealing, which is also kind of unusual. Like I would expect them to ask city staff to study the program and then come back and give information, and then they can decide whether they should repeal or not. Or you can ask city staff for an opinion, but I think it's kind of weird to be like, go away, study this, and then come back with a specific opinion. But I guess they can direct city staff how they want. Anyway, that is what the city of San Diego is up to. I am very surprised, and also not so surprised, that they're threatening the whole ADU bonus program. So, for context, this program has built hundreds of units already in San Diego. The units are distributed through a lot of neighborhoods, including very wealthy neighborhoods. So it's not one of these programs that targets a specific neighborhood or bunches up all of the growth in specific parts of town. It's actually one of the things I like about ADUs in general, is that they tend to be well distributed through a lot of different neighborhoods. And then there are thousands of permits in the pipeline on these units. So it could be really interesting. What's controversial about this program is that even though most of the permit applications are for sort of less than 10 ADUs, some of the projects have found really big lots, and they've proposed much larger projects. It's kind of interesting the way the whole program was formed, because instead of saying every house can build one ADU, it's saying you can keep going, and as long as you do half of them affordable, and the affordable are like for like, they're as nice as the market rate ones. And as long as you're not exceeding the underlying zoning standards for the lot, like floor area ratio, maximum height, and all those kinds of stats. And so a lot of the lots, I've been to a bunch of these projects, and some of the lots seem like, it's 2-story duplexes, and the lot next door is a single family house. But then you go 2 lots over and there's a 2-story single family house, right? They're respecting the same massing rules as the underlying zoning code. They're just making them affordable rentals, 50% affordable rentals, instead of single family home with a single homeowner. So it's funny because people tend to complain about the size of the units. They call these monsters a lot, but actually you're allowed to build the same size with the underlying zoning code. So it begs the question. Okay, I got a comment. Mantas, it's a few bad apples ruining it by building 17 units in the backyard that gets lots of negative publicity. I wouldn't. I've been to some of the projects with like a dozen or more units, and you're totally right that those are lightning rods for publicity, and that's what most of this argument is about. That's a great public comment, actually. If you're in San Diego, you should totally go to the city website. I'll put a link in the chat or in the video description where you can put a public comment in now and just say, hey, bonus ADU is good up until like 10 units or whatever you think, right? And it's only the projects over this threshold that should require another level of scrutiny or whatever. Like whatever you think, this is a great time to actually submit that. So let me find the link where you can submit that comment, because that would be super helpful, actually. I think the important thing is that you're going to put, hey, agenda item 330, no, sorry, that's not the agenda item for the ADUs. You're going to put agenda item S507, and you're going to say oppose, and then you can say what you said, which is like, this is a good program. It's only the project's over a certain size, and you give them a size that you have in mind that should get extra scrutiny. Don't repeal the whole program. That's a great comment. So I'm gonna find a way to poke that. Sorry, I'm kind of new to this vertical live stuff, so I still need to figure out how to like update the description while I'm going. Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna put instructions. So it's item item 507. Okay. All right, I'm updating the video description now. So if you look at the description in this live, then you should be able to see a link where you can issue public comment and a link where you can read the agenda. If you're issuing public comment, you want to put, there's a field for what item they're discussing. You put item S507, and then there's a field that says support or oppose. You put oppose if you agree with me that you wouldn't want a complete repeal of the ADU bonus program. Even if you want them to study it, I would put oppose, don't study a complete repeal, study like how we put guardrails on this or how we improve the program. You know, one concern I have personally is that I want this program to apply as much to all levels of neighborhood, right? Like I like when I see there's a density bonus project with 43 units in, what's the neighborhood called? In, I have the names here. I'm not good at San Diego. Oh, there's actually a 126 unit development in Pacific Beach, right? Which is one of the really ritzy neighborhoods. And so I like seeing that. So what I would want is I would want the city staff to come back and let us know how these units are distributed across different resource neighborhoods. And there's different, like they use quintiles and they show like, hey, these are the really high resource neighborhoods, the highest resource neighborhoods, all the way down to low resource neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods and impoverished neighborhoods. And by studying how the ADUs are being applied, you might find, oh, look, it's being unevenly applied in one neighborhood or another. And then we need to improve the program so that these ADUs are being built everywhere. I like that idea, right? Or a common complaint I hear is that, hey, these are happening in transit priority areas, which means they're supposed to be really close to like walking distance from a really good bus line. But actually, if you try to walk from the development to the bus line, there's no sidewalks, the roads have potholes, there's no street lights. And I would love for the city to go study that and then come back and say, hey, we actually need to put in more sidewalks, repave the roads, put in street lights, right? Like the goal here should be, let's create the housing. Let's allow developers to create housing for people, especially when half of it is affordable. And then let's, as a city, provide infrastructure for those people to live healthy, wonderful lives. I think that's my approach. That's what I would ask for in my public comment. So that's what I'm here. There's links in the video description if you want to do public comment. If you could show up on Tuesday in person, then that's also an option. Marcello, NIMBY's, yeah, I feel that. That's why the NIMBY's here today. This is my little NIMBY. He's a little too happy, but you know, that's the NIMBY that I can stand. That's the only one in my life. Whoops. And it's you believe it only applies to the RS zones. Yeah. So the bonus ADU program, it's limited to TPA, so transit priority area, which I'll also admit has some flaws, right? Like the way transit priority areas are defined, it's like half a mile from mass transit, but sometimes that's a half a mile that crosses like a freeway, and that's that's something that we can improve, right? We and I understand why people say, hey, we should improve this program because there's obvious improvements. That's great. I want people to bring that energy to their comments, but when city councilors are sneaking in motions to completely repeal really successful ways to build housing and affordable housing, I'm just losing my mind, right? Jenny says, public comment only accepted of local residents. Is that correct? Great point, Jenny. Yes, what I always tell people is only offer public comment if it's going to be constructive, right? And so if you live there or work there, then you should definitely issue public comment. Like what I'll do is I'll say, hey, I help homeowners in the city of San Diego plan and build ADUs. So I work in San Diego in a way. And I'm very honest about that. I always put the city that I'm really from in public comment. There's actually a field where you can put what city you're from. I put Napa. The other thing you can do is if you have an objective opinion or are related to it in some way. Like my kid lives in San Diego and I wish I could live there. If that's true, right? Then that's a great reason to put a comment. Or if you live on the outskirts in the suburbs and you commute in there, but you don't get to live there, namely because of the housing affordability, then those are all great reasons. But if you don't have a connection to San Diego, then it's not the right place to weigh in, especially. This is just nuance, and obviously do whatever you want in life, right? I'm just giving advice as an advocate. But I think sometimes, so on this footnote 7 issue, that's much more controversial in my mind. My opinion doesn't matter, is my feeling, because I can talk offline as a wonk, as a policy person about footnote 7, but when a lot of people from the neighborhood are there and they feel like it was implemented in a way that wasn't transparent, it's not great for somebody from way out of town to come in and say, well, actually, that's not my role. And I trust the process to be owned by very local groups, right? I wouldn't even like it if somebody from another part of the city came in and was like, we should put more housing in your neighborhood and in Encanto. That's very not in my backyard, yes, in your backyard, right? And so great question, Jenny. I would keep your comments only in cities where you feel like your comment is very relevant. I would limit yourself to cities where your comment is relevant because you live there, you work there, you have family there, you wish you could live there, things like that. But having said that, there's other topics where I would encourage people to weigh in. So it just depends on the topic. And then some cities are very strict about it, so you should never, like, I was just living in DC for a bit last year, and there are a bunch of issues in the cities in Northern Virginia, and they're really used to a lot of political types who live in DC or Maryland or outside the city, kind of coming into the city council, and they really hate it. So those cities have specific rules, like tonight only locals, but like in California, it's a lot looser. You can actually see in the public comments for the January meeting that some people from like the lawyers of a developer wrote in, and they put city that they're from. So people weigh in from out of town too. Marcello, I'm a developer of ADUs here. Can't believe the city council is looking to repeal completely. Again, I pray it's limited to RS zones. I was proud of San Diego being a leader in ADUs. Oh, well. Yeah, well, hey, Marcelo, you still have a chance. There's kind of two bites of this apple. One is you write a comment for this Tuesday meeting and you go, look, I develop ADUs here and you can't repeal the whole program. It will make a big it will make a big difference to maintain the program. You should do X, Y, and Z, like improve the program. But make it clear that you are willing to take the time to make a comment. And if you can be there in person, even better, but at least put in an electronic comment. And then the staff, even if they vote to send the staff away for a motion, what I imagine if we put enough pressure, they'll say, okay, a lot of people like this program. Let's just direct staff to go research it and like come back with suggestions, not tell the staff to come back with a repeal action. That's very different, right? And then when the staff come back, then we'll have more advance notice and we'll be able to mobilize and have a lot of people who need the housing show up and say, hey, I would love it if I could get an affordable apartment as a result of these ADUs, these bonus ADUs. Jenny says, thanks, makes perfect sense, I think is what it says. Yeah, cool. Yeah. City council like activism can be really confusing because it's not very human. Like they're not marketing it, right? That's awesome, Marcella. I really appreciate that. I think it makes a huge difference. People often ask, why do we bother writing in and showing up? Like, isn't it politics? Don't they already have their minds made up? And they absolutely do not have their minds made up. Some of them do, and like, that's life. But there's two things that I know. One is that the newer council members are, the newer a council member is, the more impressionable they are to public comment. I actually wish that they were a little more independently minded, because you're always guaranteed to have people yelling on both sides of almost every issue around housing. And the people who say no are the loudest in the past and sometimes still. And so I wish that newer, younger council members weren't as impressionable as they are, but they are impressionable. And so showing up, especially in person, matters a lot. Then the other thing is council members, a lot of the time, they do know, they'll know that saying yes to a project is the right thing, or that having a good plan like the bonus program is the right thing, but they want to have the comfort of knowing that the public supports them in that decision, right? Like as an elected official, even at that small or local level, you're kind of balancing two things. You want to be a leader who does the right thing, but you also want to represent the people who voted for you, and you want to win again. And so the balance there is always in your mind, and everybody's got a different equation, but I find a lot of people balance the representation part very highly, slash the win again part very highly. And so just having a number of people in the audience saying, look, we all like this program, and like I live X miles from a site that got developed with a bonus ADU. I love it. And that's really important to hear, right? And that somebody just, here's one reasonable person next to one reasonable person can outweigh like 5 screamers in my experience. So it's powerful to show up in person. All right, so that's the skinny. I think for other common stuff that comes up, just because this video will be live for the whole weekend, up until Tuesday, people say, hey, these units aren't really affordable, and I can explain that briefly, but like the definition of affordability is set by county level and by state and by HUD. There's all these definitions of what affordability means, and it's based on the area median income. And honestly, that number has gotten really high, where it's even affordable units seem super expensive. They are super expensive. But that is what the program is designed to do. It's designed to create units at that level of affordability. There are options within the bonus program where you can do extremely affordable apartments. I forget what all the terminology is. Or you can do pretty affordable apartments. And you have different time durations of deed restriction for depending, so you could go very affordable for a shorter period, right? And most of the developers, almost all of them, are opting for the basic affordability, not the deep affordability. And that might be a way we can change the program if we want to see more deep affordability. But as far as none of, quote unquote, none of these are affordable, lots of them are. So far, 116 as of I think the last APR units have been built with deed restricted affordability, and that's 116 apartments and homes that wouldn't exist otherwise at that extra level of affordability. And that's really cool. Like, we should be celebrating that as a win. It is a big deal that those units exist. That's 116 families, and individuals. Anyway, there's also a lot of conversation about fire, and this is again a very important conversation to have. The way that I see it done is a little intellectually dishonest, I find. People tend to use the Very High Fire Hazard Severity Zone map. That's a big acronym. VHFHSZ. Yeah. Very High Fire Hazard Severity Zone. That's the acronym. So people say, oh, we're building a lot of units in the fire hazard zone. That's a map that comes down at the state level. I would point out that something like a third of the new units are being built in the Very High Fire Hazard Severity Zone, that's significant. But that 70% of San Diego falls in that zone. So considering that more than 2/3 of the city is in that zone, the fact that only 1/3 of the development is in that zone is actually, to me, as a person who's not super familiar with the topography on the ground, I'm like, that seems like a good ratio. But I don't want to be glib, because we see more and more natural disasters, we see more and more fires, and the goal of building all this housing is not to house people for 10 years, it's to house people for 100 years. And so we want these homes to exist. And if there is something that the city can do to refine the process so that more development happens in fire safe areas, then I will always support that. And if there are places where we clearly shouldn't be building, I will understand that, right? And I sympathize greatly. We have this debate all the time in the Bay Area too. Like, I live in Napa. There was a fire, like I could see it from my house in 2017, like on the mountains far away from me. So I'm not like saying like, oh, woe is me. But I could see the fire, right? And so I take it very seriously. I understand that we want housing that lasts for a really long time and that's safe for the people who are living in it. So I take it super seriously. The litmus test that I usually have is when people say, oh, this place is unsafe for ADUs, but it's safe for single family homes. Or like, I should be able to live here, but other people can't live here. That's when I start to get suspicious. Now, when people say, we should not have anybody living in this area, I understand that. And when people talk about managed retreat or depopulating an area, I understand that. When people say, we should forbid more people from moving here, but we should allow me to live here, and we should forbid more people. This is very specifically, I often hear, we can't allow more people here because there's too many cars already. And I'm like, okay, well, let's put a cap on the number of cars each person can own in your neighborhood. I'm like, well, no, I get to own as many cars as I want, but we should ban people. It's an argument I hear a lot. I'm like, I don't know if that follows, right? People claim that they're doing it for fire safety, but then when you propose policies that would make them safer in the case of an evacuation, all of a sudden they get a little defensive, in my experience. That is not true about everybody. Again, I shouldn't be glib, because there are areas where I'm, again, super amenable to people saying we should depopulate this area, we should do a managed retreat. But what I often find is that there are cities that are actively taxing people for having vacant lots. So they're sort of making you pay for not building a house. But if you try to build an ADU, then they want to stop you. It's like, why are houses better than ADUs in terms of fire safety? So that's how I think about fire safety. Take it seriously. Honestly, consider any attempt to incentivize construction in safe places and support it. Honestly, hear people out about depopulating and retreating from unsafe places. But I come with a lot of suspicion if people are saying, well, rental units are bad and like unsafe, but homeowners and single family homes are fine. I'm always very suspicious of that kind of rhetoric. And that's what I would suggest you approach the situation with too. And then you can make up your own mind about this stuff, right? Like you need to think about the risk and think about the safety and think about the imminent danger of how people spending over a third of their income on rent, people falling into homelessness even when they're working full-time jobs, people raising kids in cars because they can't afford their housing, people commuting an hour and a half, 2 hours because they can't afford to live close to their work. You weigh those imminent dangers against or alongside the other imminent dangers, which are, this house won't exist if it gets burnt to the ground, right? And if and when that happens, will everybody be able to evacuate safely? These are all important things to consider. So, totally get it. The other thing is, I would just want to talk because a lot of people call these like monster ADUs, and the word monster gets used a lot. Monstrosity. There was actually a competition, a photo competition for worst ADU that got a lot of photo submissions, and I think here's what I'd say. Again, this is the same litmus test as before. These ADUs are following the same underlying zoning guidelines as the main houses, as the primaries. They can't be taller than a primary house can be. They can't have a bigger FAR than a primary house can be. And they have to follow all the underlying zoning stuff. Because like when you're just building an ADU detached, if it's under 800 square feet, you get to skip a lot of those rules. But when you're opting into this bonus program, you're saying I'm going to follow all of the massing rules. So it's the size of a house. The only difference is the use inside. And when people call it a monster, they're not saying that about the 2-story single-family home in their neighborhood. They're only saying it about the 2-story apartment townhouses, right? And so again, my suspicion, my spidey sense starts tingling when people treat renters differently from homeowners. I've been to a bunch of these homes, and they're nice. They're nice apartments. They're just they're nicer than some of the apartments I've lived in, and especially in California. And yeah, I don't know. People like labels. People like using the word monster. People like saying, oh, it's ruining the neighborhood. But I don't know. The neighborhoods didn't seem ruined to me. I'm very open to safety concerns. I am not open to turning renters into monsters. I think that's a weird thing that we do in this country. Yeah, so those are the major beats I wanted to hit. I haven't talked much about Footnote 7, except to say, look, it seems to me like an issue that there's a lot of public support for repealing it. Ironically, I find that, again, without going into all the detail, repealing Footnote 7 is intellectually, it's in the same school as a lot of other discriminatory practices. I think Footnote 7 was put there for a good faith reason, but I understand the controversy, and I'm just not wading into that. And I hope that we find a solution to the housing shortage especially in urban areas like San Diego, where there's not a lot of land left. You know, you've hit the ocean on one side, you hit another country on the other side, you hit some mountains on the third. So you're like, there's only so many places, and we have a lot of job opportunities there. And so I hope that we can house people there, and that people live good, healthy lives. Everybody. So yeah, thanks for watching. That was my spiel on the city of San Diego. If you haven't yet, check this description below this video. Especially if you live or work in San Diego, I would encourage you to use the form to issue a comment. Issuing a public comment is very fast. You just put in, I have directions in that video description, but you just put item S507 and you put oppose if you oppose a complete repeal of the ADU bonus program. And then you put your opinion and why you would not repeal the whole thing. Even if you think it should be improved, I would put oppose the complete repeal. I think it should be improved for these reasons or in these ways. And I think it's that. Oh, hey, KP. Yeah, you don't think the units are affordable. Yeah, we talked about that earlier in the video, and I super appreciate that you're sharing that. It's true that they're still very expensive, even when they're deed restricted affordable. I get where you're coming from. You live in San Diego, and there are lots of corporate builders building communities, and no one is complaining about that. Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, hey, it's true. It's true. There's a ton of, you know, one of the people in the Footnote 7 issue is D.R. Horton, and they're a huge corporate home builder. You know, I'm kind of, because of what I do in the channel and my advocacy work, I just try to be open-minded about all this stuff. But I completely understand. So I support even the big companies that are building a lot of houses, as long as they're building a lot of houses. In safe places where people need the housing, right? Like close to jobs. And I especially like it when it's in cities where it's good for the environment and like not sprawling into the suburbs. And it's good for our communities. It's good for small business owners. It's good for, that's what I like. Strong towns, right? But yeah, I totally sympathize when people see the big corporate builders kind of doing big sprawling communities and go, I don't like that very much. I hear you. That's a good opinion. Well, I'm glad you found it informative, and oh, thank you both. Thank you, KP. Thank you, Jenny. I'm glad you guys liked it. I don't know how these vertical lives are working out. So if you like this format, let me know. I might go back to horizontal lives because it's for a bunch of nerdy YouTube reasons. But if people like this, then let me know, and that's helpful information for me. And please, if you live or work in San Diego, issue a comment. If you could be there at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, man, it would be really powerful to get a bunch of people in that room saying, took some time in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, to let you guys know this is a popular program and we want more affordable housing, and what are you doing? Thank you very much. Have a great Friday. Oops, that's not the right pen.